Hello all. So I'm going to go through this first task. It's just intro questions, and it's essentially watching videos and reading a little bit, and then just writing some notes on what you found interesting or what you remember from it. So the first one just asks you to write down, what does social justice mean to you? Watch this video about Martin Luther King. It's not very long, and pause it when you hear something that makes you sit up or take notice or go, oh, that's interesting, or wow, I didn't think that. And write down at least 5 things, ideally 8, but see what kind of jumps out at you. There's a little bit of a image thing here just to show you what some of the civil rights posters look like. And if you look at those, you can glean more ideas and concepts about what the issues were. These questions are just making sure that you get the gist of this video. You don't have to write a huge amount on these questions. You might have even written about them here. Now, this part here is about the Yothu-Yindi Treaty song, and there is no video on that, so you have to read it, but I'm going to read it out for you. Okay, in 1988, as part of the bicentennial celebrations, Australian Prime Minister Bob Hawke visited the Northern Territory of the Burunga Festival, where he was presented with a statement of Aboriginal political objectives called the Burunga Statement. Hawke responded to the Burunga Statement with a promise that a treaty would be concluded with Indigenous Australians by 1990. However, this did not happen. In 1991, Yothu-Yindi, an Australian musical group with Aboriginal and Balanda, which means non-Aboriginal members, wanted a song to highlight the lack of progress on the treaty between Aboriginal peoples and the federal government. Just by the way, there still is no treaty. So this is a long time ago that Bob Hawke said, yeah, we'll get a treaty. Didn't happen then, still hasn't happened now. Mandawai Yunupingu, the lead singer of Yothu-Yindi, recalls about the song when it was written. Bob Hawke, he visited the territory. He went to this gathering in Burunga, and this is where he made a statement that there shall be a treaty between black and white Australia. Sitting around the campfire trying to work out a chord to the guitar, and around the campfire I said, well, I heard it on the radio and I saw it on the television, and that should be a catchphrase, and that's where treaty was born. When he was interviewed about it in 2004, that's when he said it. Treaty was written by Australian musician Paul Kelly and Yothu-Yindi members. The initial release had little interest, but when Melbourne-based dance remixers called Filthy Lucre, Gavin Campbell and Robert Goodidge adapted the song, their version peaked at number 11 on the Australian Recording Industry Association, which is ARIA, singles charts by September. The song contains lyrics in both English and in Yolngu Matha. It was accompanied by a video showing band members performing vocals, music and dance. Success for the single was transferred to the related album Tribal Voice, which peaked at number 4 on the ARIA album charts. These 2 bits are statements, just a bit of research from the internet. What is a treaty? Calls for a treaty in Australia refer to a formal agreement between the government and Indigenous people that would have legal outcomes. A treaty in Australia could recognise Indigenous people's history and prior occupation to this land, as well as the injustices they have endured. As of 2020, there are no such treaties in existence. Australia is the only Commonwealth country to lack an Indigenous treaty. An Indigenous treaty was first promised by Prime Minister Bob Hawke in 1988 after receiving the Burunga Statement from Aboriginal elders, which called for such a treaty to be concluded. So you can pause my video or rewind, write down 5 to 8 things, ideally 8, but no less than 5, that you found interesting or surprising or important about what I just wrote out. Witnum is the next theme, and you need to watch this video, which will give you a lot of information. And also, so pause this, watch the video. Once you've watched it, come back, and I'm going to read out these statements. These statements I found on just a website where people share their knowledge about songs. So, this song refers to the Witnum asbestos mine in Western Australia, where blue asbestos was mined between 1947 and 1966. The once thriving town is now a virtual ghost town. Shops are boarded up. The 2 schools are closed. The local cinema is derelict. In their ignorance, the original settlers used asbestos in gardens, schoolyards, and roads. Witnum is without doubt Australia's greatest industrial disaster, and it is estimated that 25% of the 20,000 men who mined asbestos there will die from related diseases. That's awful. If you look, so these are people who have watched the video and listened to the song, and this is their sort of impressions that I thought were helpful. If you look at the headstone in the video, freeze it at 1:42, you see the place of birth, Yugoslavia, on the Facebook page for the band. They indicate this was a deliberate choice on their part, since many immigrants to Australia who had been displaced persons were given the choice to work at a mine as part of becoming permanent Australian residents. I liked the song, but I didn't realise the significance of it until I visited my late uncle Gintz Stipniks. He is mentioned in a book about former Chief of Australia's National Library. And my uncle pointed out he was given a choice between working the Blue Sky Mine or being a lumberjack. He chose to be a lumberjack, which was pretty lucky. Midnight Oil needs to be saluted for highlighting the video, the other parts of the tragedy. Next comment. Apparently Blue Sky Mining was based on a book called Blue Murder, written by a sufferer of asbestos illness. Even today, the people in charge of the company and the mine are holding back compensation and support for the miners who are suffering from the blue asbestos. Hence the lines, "The balance sheet is breaking up the sky." The company is making a huge profit, while the miners are, quotation, "caught at the junction still waiting for medicine." I've lived up the north in the Pilbara all my life. I've travelled all over Australia, and very few places match the areas of beauty. Another comment. I always thought this was a song of profound sadness. The narrator sounds like he's completely helpless to save himself. Quote, "And if the Blue Sky Mining Company won't come to my rescue, and if the sugar refining company won't save me, who's going to save me?" End quote. That's from the song. Those 2 places are the last 2 places he'll get help. Last comment. The song is about how a huge Australian company screwed over its workers by not telling them the dangers of asbestos until recently. They took no responsibility for their actions. This company owned the asbestos mines and the Australian sugar refineries. Cold Chisel's song Taipan CSR is the sugarcane king. So from the video, from these comments that have a lot of information in them, write down 8 things you learnt about the video and the posts. Again, hopefully 8, maybe just 5. And CSR is the sugar refining company. CSR Sugar, you've probably got it in your pantry, and they produce sugar. Yeah. So do as much as you can.